Trump administration is taking some of its most aggressive steps yet to shrink the U.S. Department of Education, moving key programs into other federal agencies as a test run for a permanent breakup. New numbers help to tell the story. 6 interagency agreements signed just this week. Nearly half of the department's workforce targeted for a reduction, and more than $3 trillion spent since the department was created, while national test scores continue to fall. The Secretary of Education says these moves are all about proving to Congress that the system can work without a standalone agency.
What we want to do is to show Congress that this implementation works. It's a proof of concept, and it's a show and say, okay, this is how a permanent transfer to this department is going to work. We need their vote to do that, and we're not looking at this lightly.
All right, time for a deeper dive into this. We have Ashley Young, the Senior Education Analyst for Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. All right, when you look at these numbers, right? When you look at these total moves as moving programs into multiple agencies, is this a risk of creating more bureaucracy instead of less, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a concern. I think another concern is that we know a lot of the staff in the U.S. Department of Education have been laid off. And so there's not going to be a lot of transfer of institutional knowledge into specifically the Department of Labor to really ensure a streamlined transfer of services. So I think there will be more chaotic nature here of transferring of services, just because it's going to be in a completely new agency.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the overall impact of Georgia's education system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to put it into context. So while Georgia in 2024 spent about $32 billion to fund education, only 12% of that was actually funded from the federal government. But let's look a little bit closer at that. It's important to note that the Title I funding and the funding that is received from the federal government is going to support some of our most vulnerable and marginalized students, right? Our students who are attending schools that have high poverty rates, students whose English is their second language, rural students, supplemental instruction. And so all 100 and plus counties, school districts, in Georgia depend on some type of federal funding or Title I funding. So this will have an impact across the state, I would say.
So what happens to those students, say this takes place, right? You talk about billions of dollars here. Is there another source, another stream of funding coming in, or do those programs just go by the wayside?
I think that obviously it's a little bit hard to predict the future, but we do know what has historically happened. We see a lot of cuts for programs that aren't deemed as necessary. And so we know students who have the need for, again, supplemental instruction, after school programming, tutoring services for students, that these programs are inevitably going to be the first to be cut, unfortunately, as we're seeing some shifts in our state funding. We're seeing some property tax debates at the state level that are impacting state funding, which, again, local funding is about 48%, which is the highest portion of funding for states. And so this is going to really make sort of shifts all around, that we're really going to have to make some changes up in the state and local level.
Yeah, if the Department of Education is shrunk down dramatically, who makes sure that schools follow those federal laws, like civil rights laws? Who makes sure that takes place?
Yeah, so that is one of the major concerns. I don't believe there's actual information of where sort of the Civil Rights Department or where those services will be transferred to just yet. But these are some of the major issues, and one of the main reasons why many school districts and vulnerable populations depend on the federal government for these services to address these sort of injustices that are happening on the local level. So obviously, I would imagine we'll be getting more information about that. Of course, this just addressed 6 of the agencies, but this will all remain to be seen, but it's going to be important for all of our Georgia students.
Do you think Georgia agencies are prepared to take on more responsibilities for oversight, compliance, or reporting?
That's a great question. it's something that is unclear now, but we're not sure. And what makes this even more, I think, critical is that nationally, right, we're talking a transfer of over $33 billion. So that comes with a lot of responsibility, right? A lot of functions, a lot of services. And so it is going to be a transition nonetheless. But no, we're unsure of how this could really impact sort of the capacity of our state Department of Education here in Georgia.
We understand that 20 states are suing to stop these moves. Do you think they have enough power to maybe slow it or block it?
Let's hope so. I mean, there's obviously going to be much litigation with these types of announcements and shifts, right? Because it is going to overwhelm, as you're mentioning or as you're alluding to, our state departments of education. And so having a better plan as this is happening will be helpful. Again, we know that to actually dissolve the U.S. Department of Education would need an act of Congress, but we are already seeing this unfold. So I'm not sure what role that will actually play in this transition.
Got it. Ashley Young, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.